Hi there, my name is Chris Covell, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel if you're new to it. It's not much of a YouTube channel, and I'm not much of a YouTuber, but occasionally I posted videos of things that I thought were cool from, for example, old VHS tapes from Japanese video game magazines back in like 1989 or 1990, and I annotated those, but YouTube kind of took out the annotations, so I thought what I would do today is read through some of my old Japanese video game magazines from around the same time and explain the historical context and point out some cool things that's in the magazine. So here's a shout out to Chris at Classic Gaming Quarterly, CGQ. Now I'm not copying him or copying his style, but I did want to read through magazines and give some interesting explanations because he read EGM and GamePro magazines and pointed out the historical context there, and is really nostalgic for me because I grew up around the same time. So I'm going to do the same thing and hopefully expose more of Famicom Tsushin and etc. to the English-speaking audience and the wider world. So I hope you enjoy it. Leave comments, check out my website. It should be linked in my channel as well. So see you later. Thanks. Okay, so today I'm going to read the October 12th, 1990 issue of Famicom Tsushin magazine. This was published by ASCII Corporation at the time. ASCII was a large media company. They also published software and co-developed the MSX line of computers as well. So 1990 in Japan was nearing the end of the bubble economy, the bubble era in Japan, where people suddenly had great wealth and consumer culture kind of reflected that. In 1990, the Game Boy, the Mega Drive, by 1990, the Game Boy and the Mega Drive had already been released. And so people are kind of excited about the Game Boy a little bit. And most importantly, in November of 1990, the Super Famicom was finally set to be released. So this magazine captures a very good snapshot of the anticipation and excitement of coming up to the release of the Super Famicom. And also maybe it kind of shows that game companies were growing weary of Famicom releases. And so the games are kind of lackluster a little bit, except for the mainstays, Konami and Capcom. So, you know, let's jump in and have a look, okay? So hopefully you can see that all right. Here's a just general Konami ad with Akumaja Special, Dracula-kun, Boku Dracula-kun, and Twin Bida for the Game Boy, as well as a Case Boy, a leatherette case for the Game Boy. And here's a just general Final Fantasy ad for Final Fantasies 1, 2, and 3. Table of contents. So I guess their special here is F1 racing, so it's Feel the F1. And here's the top 30 list of games going by some nebulous point system. I mean, it's not clear to anybody, you know, how they rank the games. I guess it's going by game sales, and they're aggregating some kind of points. And so this is for the end of September, I believe. So Dr. Mario's top, SD Gundam Night Gundam Monogatari, an RPG. Tetris for the Game Boy, Captain Tsubasa for the Famicom. For some reason, Bomber Boy was popular on the Game Boy. An SD Hero, an SD Gundam Hero game again. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the Game Boy, Super Mario Land, a baseball game, Famicom Tetris. And then I'll read these ones quickly. Ninja Ahoy, an RPG. Well, an SD strategy game, SD Gundam strategy game. Dr. Mario for the Game Boy. Power Mission for the Game Boy, which is a battleships type game. Dragon Quest IV down here. That's odd, but anyway, it was released earlier in 1990, and that was a huge hit in the first half of 1990. Second half would be, you know, the Super Famicom. Valis 3 on the PC Engine shows up. Hiryu no Ken, that's Culture Brain's kung fu fighting games. Super Mario Bros. 3. Hatris is up there. Big Goody Man World for the Famicom. Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers, Momotaro Densetsu Turbo, Game Boy Golf, Game Boy Quarth by Konami, Rockman 2 by Capcom on the Famicom,
Columns on the Mega Drive was popular, and Super Monaco Grand Prix on the Mega Drive. Dragon Quest III is still popular. Super Chinese Land on the Game Boy, and finally Nemesis on the Game Boy. So I guess, in a little tiny bit of Famicom slump between the big Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest releases, gamers were getting into the Game Boy a little bit. Now, the thing about this magazine is bi-weekly, which means it comes out every 2 weeks. So these, usually in a monthly magazine, you would have the top sales of the month. And so that means that anomalies would be smoothed out over the month. But if it's bi-weekly or, with weekly sales, kind of aberrations like Bomber Boy suddenly selling 1 week and not any other weeks is not smoothed out. So it's a very week by week snapshot of game sales. And here is the top 20 as chosen by the readers, the games they like best at this time. And Final Fantasy III is up there, and so is Dragon Quest IV. Captain Tsubasa, Super Monaco Grand Prix makes a big showing. Sangokushi by Koei, so a strategy game. And, well, there's more here. Here's the all-time top best by the readers. And so they love RPGs, so in Japan. So Dragon Quest IV, Dragon Quest III, Final Fantasy III, Final Fantasy II are like the top 4. And then Tetris on the Game Boy, best played Pro Yaku, I don't know why, etc. Makai Toshi Saga, that's Final Fantasy Adventure, I believe, on the Game Boy. And Saga 2 is actually and eagerly anticipated coming in December. Mother is still popular, and Wizardry 3, a whole bunch. It's kind of typical Japanese tastes. So here are the games that are anticipated coming in the future. They really can't wait to see it. That's Final Fight and Darius 2, Wizardry Gaiden on the Game Boy. Maybe those are this week's, I guess, the newest appearances. And so people are waiting for Saga 2 and Super Mario World, Rockman 3, Strider for the Mega Drive, Gradius 3 for the Super Famicom, Shin Zelda Densetsu, so the new Zelda coming in 1991. Parodius on the Famicom. What else is interesting? Nobunaga's Ambition for the Game Boy. People are looking forward to that. Wizardry, etc. Okay, so next page. Here are the top 15 arcade games in Japan at this time. And Beast Busters by SNK was big, I don't know why. Okay, Super Monaco Grand Prix by Sega, Final Lap 2 by Namco, Raiden. It says Tecmo, okay, by that's Seibu Kaihatsu. Adult Video, no. I thought it was Mahjong. It is Mahjong, I'm sure. Adult Video Agemon, that's the Mahjong game. So I guess some porno erotic Mahjong titles are popular. Quiz, another quiz game. So yeah, I guess these kind of games are popular with the salary man. Outzone by Toaplan. Tetris by Sega. So that's kind of a short-lived Sega arcade release. And Moonwalker by Sega, that's a new release. And here are the top games that are by sales in the USA as of late September 1990. And so Super Mario Bros. 3, Final Fantasy, Tetris on the Game Boy, I believe. Oh, I don't know. It doesn't say if it's Famicom or not, or Nintendo NES or not, so we don't know. But Ninja Gaiden, Super Mario Land, that's Game Boy for sure. That's Super Mario Bros. 2 for the NES. Paperboy, Super C, Baseball Stars, Ninja Gaiden 2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's new, so I'm guessing that's for the Game Boy. Tecmo Bowl, Alleyway for the Game Boy, Super Spike V-Ball, and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is still popular. I'm surprised that, I guess, Mega Man 2 is not still up here, or any Capcom games, but okay, whatever. And so here's a short article that runs every 2 weeks, where a guy in America is saying, what's popular in America. So NFL football for the Game Boys is popular there. And I guess it didn't come out in Japan. And so here's the Famicom and Game Boy used releases, things that are maybe just the price list for used games. So people are actually finally selling their old systems. And the top picks at the various electronic stores. Yeah, they're not bad. Okay. So not a lot of news in this issue except for the PC Engine GT. The Turbo Express was released was announced, so it's coming out in November as well. And so just the specs and price. They're kind of shocked by the price, 448,000 yen. Is that cheap? Is that expensive? We can't tell. That's what they're saying. But it is compatible with all the PC Engine games. It has some special link cable capabilities in a couple games, like Barman and Spin Pair. And it comes. You can buy an optional TV tuner, so it might be worth the price. I mean, it's a luxury item to begin with. And here's an overview of some American-only, for the time, Sega Genesis games. So are they going to come to Japan, they're wondering. So Budokan, Populous, and actually Mickey Mouse, Castle of Illusion, I guess that came out in America first. So here's the cross review, where they review games over a span of 2 weeks. And this is like the review crew. I mean, EGM copied the idea of the review crew from these guys. Even Sushi X, originally was Taco X in Japan. So this is like the the editor and a writer, staff writer. They change sometimes. One important thing, I believe, this so-called writer, she's a lady, I guess, but I think the Famitsu guys revealed that she is just a composite of whoever wants to write for that week. And actually, this is not really a real review. These are men imitating or imagining what would a woman comment about for these video games. So it's a little bit dishonest. They're trying to have a more balanced review score, but one of the others is writing the review, so it's fake anyway. So not sure about this one. I mean, sometimes they kind of like make it like dumbed down, like, oh, I don't understand video games at all because I'm just a woman. That's kind of awful, but I guess, it shows sexism of the times. And it hasn't gone away yet. So this one here, don't trust too much. I mean, some things are rated higher because these guys, Taco X, are kind of hardcore arcade fans. Don't give me no dumb Famicom shit. They don't like it. So, well, reviews of North and South and Saburo Jinguji, I think, Famicom Disk System game. Oh no, cartridge. This is one of the cartridge releases. Rockman 3 got a kind of a mediocre score. And it actually got the same score exactly as Magic John. And no, it's not an enchanted toilet or anything like that. It's totally rad on the NES. And they like them the same, which is kind of strange. Gomo La Speed on the PC Engine is actually a great game. I like it. Die Hard is so-so, but it got higher scores than Rockman 3. Kind of unbelievable. Here's Ultrabox 2 on the PC Engine. That kind of got good good ratings. I guess because trying to go for a multimedia and variety, so they kind of appealed to them at the time. And the PC Engine version of Afterburner 2 is great. Got a good score. Double Ring, it's all right. Hellfire on the Mega Drive, and here's a Jajamaru game on the Game Boy. F1 Boy by Ask Kodansha, so just overhead racing game. Here's Strider for the Mega Drive, and that's a really good conversion, so it got good scores. These guys kind of give it a little bit lower score. I don't know why it has the same fun of the arcade, but not the graphics or something. Gunnak on the Famicom is great. And here's Rainbow Islands for the Mega Drive. Kind of got okay scores, a little bit low here. Here's Wozu for the Game Boy. Another Mahjong game. It's Jante Monogatari for the PC Engine CD, and he didn't like it, but they did. And Final Zone Axis for the Mega Drive, it's so-so. And here's Nobunaga's Ambition for the Game Boy. Kind of middling reviews. These guys are kind of give very dry commentary and kind of low reviews. But of course they'll give Dragon Quest 10, Dragon Quest 4 a 10 out of 10. All right, so we'll just go past a little small articles. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. This is just kind of fluff pieces. One guy's commentary on the nostalgia of Bravo Man. And here's a first half of a strategy guide for Rockman 3, Mega Man 3 on the Famicom. And so they go through the stages. I don't think I need to comment on this. It's just nice to look at. Full maps for these stages and tips at every point. Yeah, so they covered Sparkman. They kind of have a weird order, and then the somewhat easier Magnet Man and Top Man are put last, but okay, that's their strategy. How do I comment on backgammon for the Famicom Disk System? Well, why was this game made in 1990 for the Famicom Disk System? Well, I have an idea. Koichi Sugiyama, the famous composer for games like Dragon Quest, was the president of the Japanese Backgammon Society back in the day. And so I'm sure his love of backgammon probably had some kind of say in how, this game suddenly coming out by Nintendo. Sugiyama's a great composer, but the less said about his nationalistic tendencies, the better. Yes, here's another Kunio-kun sports challenge. And an adventure, a mahjong adventure RPG game. Let's skip that. Famicom cutesified version of Insector X. I gotta play this sometime. I hear it's not great, but I like the graphics, kind of. It reminds me of Power Blazer. So it's by Taito, so maybe the same guys who made Power Blazer. And so, okay, here's the anticipation coming up to the Super Famicom's release. So it's only October, early October, but they've got some screenshots and video of the Super Famicom. So here's crappy-ass Ultraman. This is called Jelly Bean at the time, and it still has kind of photorealistic or more realistic graphics. And this became Jerry Boy on the Super Famicom and Smart Ball in the US. And actually, I really love this game. It's by Game Freak, the same creators that eventually made Pokemon. So Satoshi Tajiri was the creator and had the idea of a stretching slime. I like that. And here's SD Great Battle. It's a mediocre game, just an overhead action game. But actually, I like the graphics and the music's pretty good too. So, a surprise okay game from Van Presto. And here's a full spread of Super Mario World. I guess I got a video or preview copy, the lucky bastards. And so it shows the map and some cover art and back cover art for Super Mario World, and just an overview of the game. And you can tell it's nearly the final release because the bullet bills are black and have a face on them. A little bit earlier, like August, screenshots of Super Mario World had a gray bullet bill with no face on it. And then F-Zero is also previewed. They show angles. They can't show the speed, but die! You die. It's kind of cool. Spelling mistake. Untouchables. Anyway, Untouchables is one of my favorite comics. Or actually, maybe the only comic that I actually like in these Japanese game magazines. It's by a guy named who calls himself Miso Suzuki, and he basically does a satire of things that are happening in the gaming world at the time, and it's usually pretty dry and it has a lot of dark humor. I like it. This one is about riding games. In Japan, they're called taikan games that you feel with your body is the direct translation. And so games that you get into and ride, like the Sega ones. So they're talking about what's the ultimate full body experience at an arcade. And so, for example, like, here's the old stuff, Hang On from 1995, and modern times it's R360, which make a guy puke. And then moving on, okay, in the future, what are we going to have? In 1995, we'll have something we strap in like in Lawnmower Man and fly around a virtual reality landscape and shoot at stuff and spin. That's what he's imagining. But he puked, he threw up. And then moving on, let's try virtual fishing. Oh, this is boring. Oh dear. How about a virtual like ramen shop where you can taste food but not actually eat it? And then here we get into the satire. What would be the ultimate thing? Of course, a virtual sex doll experience. And so they're going, yeah, let's do this. It's awesome. It uses the latest biotechnology, and he's kind of going, oh, what? Uh-oh. Yeah, she's got warm skin and everything. How do they do that? Well, it's got a chicken heart beating inside of it. And the guy just really didn't like that. He threw up again. But they kind of overcame their nausea and wanted to try. So they have to do rock, scissors, paper for it to see who goes first, because nobody wants sloppy seconds. And so God punished them for that. That's kind of, pretty funny. I wish I could translate this one, when I have enough free time. Here's Momotaro Densetsu 2 on the PC Engine, and this is pretty impressive. They're saying, hey, how about having 16 characters join your party at once? And so you can see here you got your Momotaro and maximum of 17 characters in your party. How combat works with 17 characters, I don't know, but that's the gimmick for this game. And they're saying, hey, how about that? 11 characters. It's pretty cool. Clacks on the Mega Drive, another Game Boy SD Gundam RPG. I think this was negatively reviewed because it's too generic. Metal Max by Data East on the Famicom, which is a pretty cool tank-based RPG. And here's Strider for the Mega Drive, an ad for them. Pretty awesome. Palamedes for the Famicom and for the Game Boy too. And here's a Game Gear ad because it was released earlier in October. Yeah, pretty cool. It's just touting all the specs of the Game Gear. Yoko, some more Mega Drive games. I'll just go ahead. Another F1 game. F1 is super big in Japan at this time, and it's going to boom even more. And so here's just a whole bunch of generic Dragon Quest promotional material. Of course, Dragon Quest IV was released, and they're trying to get more sales. But even more Dragon Quest stuff, like books, videos, what else? Yeah, novels, and so that's what this is. Yeah, even more Dragon Quest stuff, more books, etc. And Jellico has an ad for Magic John, which became totally rad. I don't like it as much as Mega Man 3, do you? Gunnak, programmed by Compile. The Sunsoft ad for Famicom Gremlins 2 and Game Boy Gremlins 2. Nantetate Baseball and Shanghai 2 for the Famicom. And then Cyber Knight, another game programmed by Compile for the PC Engine. And it's got great music, it's pretty cool. Here's another Dragon Quest ad, but this is not for a video game as such, it's for tarot cards. So you can buy a Dragon Quest themed tarot fortune-telling cards. I don't get it. It should be said that in the 1980s and early 90s, flakiness was taking over Japan. People were, flush with money. Maybe their lives had no meaning, so they got into religion and mysticism and cults and stuff that makes you a flake. And so also tarot cards, like fortune-telling and stuff. No comment. Here's an early ad for a Super Famicom game, Populous. And here's Monster Maker for the Game Boy by Sofel. And Sofel has a larger ad showing, hey, these are the things we make. Here's Japanese and American versions of Casino Kid and Wall Street Kid, also Titan. I guess they would publish that because it's by a French programmer. And they also make computer software, like serious stuff. COBOL, Supercard, I guess it's HyperCard, 3D render paint program. So I guess they were making a lot of different software, not just for Famicom or Game Boy games. Here's an interesting ad for Legend of Hero Tonma, but it's for the Famicom, and this one was never released. And here's Meikujima, Kickle Cubicle, also for the Famicom. And IREM originally said there's a Famicom Tonma coming out, and there's a PC Engine Kickle Cubicle coming out. But they did a switcheroo and switched them, so only the PC Engine Tonma came out, and only the Famicom Kickle Cubicle came out. So they canceled two games at the same time. IREM. Here's Australis, PC Engine RPG. It's crap. So here we get into another topic. The late 1980s had the baby boom coming of age. They were becoming high school and university students and so on. So this was also the exam hell era, where competition to get into universities was ultra fierce. So there were a lot of video game ads, but also at the same time they had ads for increasing your memory power so you can memorize tests better. And so here's testimonials from kids getting into their preferred high school or university. So anything to get a leg up on your former classmates. People would do this. They would get into that. So you see a lot of ads for memory reading, speed reading, some kind of any kind of bullshit like that. Usually Koei took out 8 pages of ads for their strategy games. So here's a couple Koei ads. There you go, in there, and there. And finally, yeah, Nobunaga's Ambition for the Game Boy. Crossfire for the Famicom. And here's an ad for Rockman 3 by Capcom. And then, yeah, the black and white pages start where they have new readers' letters, submissions, and other, news that doesn't need color screenshots. So I won't go into that too much, just people playing around with postcards. Here people will send in, interesting or funny photographs, and that's kind of cool. And I will direct your attention to this one. This one's awesome. It's really a sign of the times, the bubble era. And so they're calling this a trifecta of the era, I guess you can say. It's a Ferrari Testarossa with a parking ticket affixed to it and a learner driver or student driver magnet attached to it. So when idiots are flush with wealth, people who have more money than sense, even if you're super young, you get a Testarossa, even if you can't drive it very well, and you park illegally and you don't care. I mean, you're rich. So they just said this is a perfect photo, and I thought that was very funny too. So, and here, before we get into the F1, here's their fortune-telling corner. So here's a fortune teller talking about your fortune for your video game life, I guess. And so they have an F1 special just about, because F1 fever is ramping up. And Famitsu, and probably other magazines too, Famitsu never shied away from showing scantily clad girls in their magazines, because they knew who their audience was. It's mostly horny boys or teenagers. And so they would always slip in some girls in state of undress, or even, tiny screenshots surreptitiously of, a porno game or an erotic computer game. Just, because they knew that's what the kids wanted. So here's just, F1, an overhead F1 game and Super Monaco Grand Prix. And so games coming out, F-Zero and F1 Race for the Game Boy, and this is out now. And actually Winning Run 2, that's a really good game. I wish I could actually play it. I wish I could have played it in a real cockpit. This was almost the first 3D racing and driving game, but Atari's hard driving came out first. But I think this one is even more impressive because it's a fast-moving F1 game with awesome, even better graphics than hard driving. I guess just interviews of pit crew or somebody, and Ayrton Senna. So here's the race queens. Has their proportions, and just they're posing, doing dumb stuff. Yeah, just cheesecake for the guys. And you could do sort of F1 yourself by doing go-karts. So they have like a go-karting review, and the review of the Suzuka circuit and all its turns, and the McLaren, Honda, and comics. And more Formula One news. Reader letters. Yeah, here's where readers write in asking for help with maps or strategies. How do I beat this game? So Daima Kaimura, Ghouls and Ghosts, and Moonwalker, eSWAT. I guess. Well, I mean, I know why they're sending in a lot of stuff for the Mega Drive. It's because they don't really cover a lot of Mega Drive tips and strategies. It's all Famicom dominated. So the chickens are coming home to roost. If you don't give tips on Mega Drive or other game systems, people will write in and say, "Hey, help me with this." There's just some kind of fold-out scratch-off map for a game. All right, now here's the Gavas system. This is like fake money for the magazine, and so every issue you would get about 17. Add up these, you get about 17 Gavas, their currency. And if you collect enough, you can buy and trade it in for prizes. And so the cheapest one would be 17 Gavas, so one issue you'd get one postcard. And then it goes all the way up to, like a Mega Drive, PC Engine, the Famicom, Walkman. But let's be clear, this is a scam. You get 17 Gavas every 2 weeks. And so if you do the math, how long would it take you to get a PC Engine? I think I did the math, and it would be something like 30 years. you'd have to collect magazines at bi-weekly for 30 years just to get a PC Engine, at which point it would be totally unavailable. So even the things that were available at the very first issue of Famitsu, it would take, I don't know, 5 years or more, and it would not be available. So it's impossible to get. This was just a scam to get you to buy the magazine. It's pretty cheeky, really underhanded. Of course, Famitsu went bi-weekly in 1991, so that would cut this down to 15 years. You would have to collect 15 years worth of issues to get one PC Engine system. Yeah, I don't think so. Here's just where the writers imagined their own video game. You know, what would be a cool game to make? And so this is, I guess, convenience store or fast food outlet expert. So it's like Cooking Mama or something, simulation game. Another strategy game. Aretha on the Game Boy. It's got nice graphics. It's an RPG by Yanoman. They changed their name later, I think, or put on a new label. Kimco. And so here we go again. Here's a 2-page mail-in insert. Super memory techniques, so super memorization techniques on how to, you know, pass the tests. And so there's a flow chart. It's bullshit. Afterburst for the Game Boy by Masaya, NZS. I like this game a lot. It's pretty cool. It's a puzzle-ish action shooting game. Yeah, and so, well, here is just some business books, like video game or computer or business books by ASCII. So their own publishing, their own games and books that they publish, they'll of course have ads for them. So these are in-house ads for their own stuff. And so here's Ninja Rahoi, another RPG for the Famicom, by ASCII. So it's their own games that, of course, they promote and probably review very highly too. Also ASCII stick, one-handed joystick for those RPGs, and a turbo file just for a couple games. And Wizardry was still very big, and it's also by ASCII. And here's the ASCII stick again. Ninja Rahoi strategy guide, and here's another Wizardry strategy guide. So they, you know, they filled up a few pages with their own in-house ads. This is kind of cool. They explain to the gamers how video games are sometimes programmed or made, and how maps are put together and what they mean. You know, why some games are limited, and also, you know, how gamers can, you know, devise a strategy around these. It's kind of cool. Just 2 pages each issue. So Nobunaga's Ambition, I guess, was the biggest release for the Game Boy at this time. Go-Go Tank, I don't like this one. It's a little bit like Lemmings, because you have to guide your friend Tank across to the exit, but you are not a mouse cursor like in Lemmings. You're also a hard-to-control airplane that has to put down blocks and stuff. So it's tricky to control, it's annoying. I wish it were better. Bubble Ghost, on the other hand, I really like this one. The Amiga version was great. It had, you know, great graphics and nice sound, and this one has great music. I recommend this one. It's a fantastic Game Boy game. Another Game Boy release action game. This is kind of rare. Yeah, Pontato Hinako, etc. And just a little bit of more filler about the Game Boy. I guess this is the Game Boy publishing department. And then the PC Engine department. So they have W Ring or Double Ring. It's not bad. It's a pretty cool shooter. And a baseball game, and Afterburner 2. Really good version of Afterburner 2 with some cool floating 3D bobs. All right, Legion on the PC Engine CD, or Region as it's written here. This has got to be one of the worst PC Engine games ever, and the most wasteful use of CD medium ever. It's by Nihon Telenet. Their sublabel Renovation, or Reno, as people who know the PC Engine know that Reno is like the label of the crappiest games that they ever put out. It's a shooting game. You die too easily. It's on CD, and yet the music is generated by the PSG chip. It does have Red Book audio, but the audio is a narration over the top of the gameplay while you're playing in English. It's not bad English. I mean, it's not totally Englishy, but it's totally out of place and a waste of the media. I don't know why they did this.
In accordance with my orders from the mother ship, I have arrived at the appointed point at 1990 hours space-time. The cave planet, checkpoint on the way to the desert planet, suddenly becomes eerily silent, and I can see only the shadow of the enemy's ship. They seem to be busy partying and not to have noticed my presence. Well, sorry guys, but I think I'll just let you tire yourselves out dancing. As a result of this battle, nothing was left to obstruct an attack on the Empire. Now no one could heal the wounds of war.
Anyway, just some more random news about like arcade. You know, this guy here is I guess does the arcade coverage for the magazine. So he just wrote his own. He's got his own corner here. His name's like Shibuya something or other. That's his pen name. And so here's the arcade game releases. You know what's coming out in the arcade, and Mizubaku Daiboken, or Liquid Kids as it's known in the West, has a little strategy guide or just introduction and items that are available. Taito's Air Inferno, a polygonal helicopter rescue game, I guess. Looks kind of cool. I've never played it. Seems to be pretty high-res graphics there. And here's Neo Geo reviews of the Super Spy. That's it. So it goes on to the Mega Drive all of a sudden. So Strider is covered for the Mega Drive. Not much more needs to be said about this one. It really is like a great game, one of the best conversions on the Mega Drive. So just doing, you know, covering the various levels and Rainbow Islands. And so here is the tips, or the secret tricks section. So they're showing some strategies to get through some of these RPGs, and you know, like hidden sound tests, level select, difficulty select. It's mostly all PC Engine. It's all PC Engine, actually. And going on, even more PC Engine stuff. So I guess they are making up for something that they didn't cover in a previous issue, I guess. So PC Engine cheats. Here's a comic book, or a comic strip advertising Makai Prince Dorabot-chan, so Kid Dracula, by Naxatsoft. And this was the first game starring Dorabot-chan. And Red Company did the character artwork, I think. And this game would later come out as The Twisted Tales of Spike McFang on the Super Famicom. But the first PC Engine version is not that great. It's just a kind of somewhat okay platforming game. So a couple Mega Drive cheats. You know, you can launch the flag person into the air by hitting him in Super Monaco GP. And here you can see ASCII's promoting their other magazines, MSX, Login. This is kind of always interesting to see. They always show like novelty goods, the stuff that you would see at Sharper Image or Den for Men, kind of useless trinkets or toys. These here are designer bandages, you know, so ladies could cover up some kind of cut. Not with a crappy plastic, you know, Band-Aid, but, you know, like a rose rose covered lace bandage, or Frankenstein's monster or something. It's weird. Some kind of pop up eggshell pens. This looks like a baby monitor and FM radio all together, so it has a remote microphone that sends to that. Kind of like race car track going vertically. A Braun food processor. These are kind of like crackers or push down firecrackers. A floating globe. Yeah, that sort of stuff. I like looking at this just because this really shows Japanese industrial design and the Japanese appearance of the way that they would design cars, products, and even buildings in the early 1990s. It was always kind of like this beige with round edges and other highlight colors like pastel green and blue. Also circular. I kind of like that era of design in Japan, and that's kind of what the Super Famicom came out of as well. That rounded, smooth with colored highlight design. A lot of consumer products from Japan looked like this, whereas they were usually sleek and black if they were designed in the West or for the West. Here's the CDs, videos, and movies being released. Some kind of B movies, and here are idols releasing their CDs or a video. Madonna's Vogue, I guess a single. And here's Sergeant Kabuki Man, B movie with a kabuki actor. Kind of funny. Halloween, Dick Tracy, and some books that are being released actually. So they covered like the media. So even adults could enjoy some of these things. This is where the adults could see what was coming out. Like, kids are not looking for these books, I think. So here's an advert by Taito for Insector X, and this one actually, Arden Rarden, or Aruden Raruden. This was not released, at least at this time, under this name. This was later released, I think, in 1991 or 1992, by the name Robocco Wars. So this changed a little bit before it came out. So I should scan this in just to get the artwork for an unreleased game. Here's the concerts coming in, and this is Heart touring Japan on concert. And more ads. This is just news that maybe Sesame Street World is coming to Japan sometime. So here's Bert and Ernie and a giant ball pool and people entering through the mouth of Big Bird. That's kind of scary. And just like what snacks and drinks are available. Tea and hibiscus and herb, gum, chewing gum, and instant ramen. Once in a while you see video game related, like a tie-in, like Mario cookies or Batman squid flavored snacks. Here's Niji no Siruku Road, just another kind of Middle Eastern and Asian Silk Road RPG. What tennis players are popular and clothing styles. Yeah, so a few pages are not really game related, but I like looking at them because they're a great time capsule. Here's Uchu Keibitai SDF by HAL, and this game uses the MMC5 macro chip, so it really has advanced, at least graphics capabilities. It's not used so much, but it's a cool shooting game. The end credits has a thanks to Satoru Iwata in this one. There's a Die Hard 2 t-shirt you could win or get. That's kind of cool. Oh, and sorry, Nintendo's having a tie-in with McDonald's about their Super Famicom, so I guess they have a campaign that's gonna happen. And so here's other prizes you can win, and this is like the telephone card page, or it could be a game card, but I think they're telephone cards. This needs a little bit of explanation, I guess. Yeah, telephone card. These were mainly collectibles, but originally they started out as a prepaid phone card. You can make certain minutes of calls or certain calls by using the card instead of having to put coins in a payphone. So I guess it's a way for traveling salespeople and business people to make a quick phone call on a payphone without putting coins, without having change all the time. Usually they cover idols here, which is kind of stupid. Here's Back to the Future 3. Here's The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. Yeah, that's really nostalgic. That's summer 1990 for me right there. That's awesome. And so here's like the future games coming out. So sneak previews of what's coming out in the future. And so yeah, here's Momotaro Densetsu 2 with many characters in your party. Daisenpu on the PC Engine. Thunderblade on the PC Engine. Not a great game. Kyukuku Tiger on the Mega Drive, actually a good game. Crossfire, another boxing game. Elemental Master for the Mega Drive. Obochama-kun for the PC Engine, kind of crappy. A quiz game. Nothing too special here. Oh, here's Langrisser for the Mega Drive. Some people really love that series. Interestingly, here's Vasum, also known as Dando on the Mega Drive. This was never released. It would have been nice to see this, but this was said to be published by Treco, but it was developed by ACOM or ICOM, the same company that made a lot of basketball games in the 8-bit and 16-bit systems, as well as Blazing Star on the Neo Geo eventually. And they also made Legendary Axe. They developed Legendary Axe 1 and also Viewpoint on the Neo Geo. So this was by the same designer as Legendary Axe and also Astian Axe on the arcade and Famicom, and it really has a close resemblance to it. Especially here, this looks like a level right out of Legendary Axe, just a tiny bit more garish colors. It's kind of colorful, I like it. It has an overhead map, so kind of RPG elements. I wish I could have tried this one out. Here's Wagyan Land 2. In the 1990s, Famicom games started to have this kind of look. So not dark and detailed like something like Batman or Vice Project Doom, but giant cartoony, large cartoony sprites and giant pencil outline backgrounds. I didn't like this style, the way Famicom games went after this. And a lot of games were designed that looked like this were actually designed by the same company. I forget the name, but they made Yonoid for Capcom as well. Not my favorite company or style of art. They also did Adventure Island 2 for Hudson, so they all have a similar look. Just a lot of flat colors. Not for me. It's Outrun on the PC Engine, YY World 2, little pictures of Contra for the Game Boy, and it says Black Dungeon for the Game Boy. And actually this came out as Cave Noir, or Black Cave, Cave Noir on the Game Boy by Konami. I think it's a roguelike, but in a tiny little room. So you go down random dungeons. Interesting one to check out. Capcom quiz game, Tenchio Kurao 2, RPG by Capcom for the Famicom. Baseball Fighter by VAP. Okay, fastest one. Here's Magical Kids Doropi, which was Creon Conquest on the NES. Radar Mission, Patris, Sengoku Ninja-kun. So yeah, this uses the same engine as Roland's Curse, obviously, but it's got a Ninja-kun license or a Ninja-kun character in it. Grandmaster, kind of cool. Like it looks like, I think it's a strategy RPG or an action RPG. Here's a little screenshot of what is this? Dragon's Lair for the Game Boy. And here is like the future release schedule, like going into September, October, November, even into 1991, and even like later. So this is a highly detailed release list of what's planned to come out in the future. There's so many unreleased games in here too. It's cool. I mean, your eyes will go bad by trying to find these, trying to look through all these, but it's cool to identify a few things. And here's the Super Famicom schedule. I'll read it quickly. Super Mario World, F-Zero, Dynamite Bomboozle, Populous, Draken, Gradius 3, Pilot Wings, Final Fight, Gadulin, New Zelda, Sim City, Ease 3, SD Great Battle, Jumbo Zaki's Hole-in-One Golf, Ultraman, Big Run, Jelly Bean or Jerry Boy, Poppers by Sunsoft. This was never released. They showed some artwork, but never a game. R-Type 2, which is Super R-Type. What is this? Augusta Golfing by TNE Soft, I think. What is this? Chomakai Mura, Super Ghosts and Ghosts. Dungeon Master. Super Professional Baseball, which is bases loaded, super bases loaded. Darius Special. His name was Darius Twin when it came out. ActRaiser and Hideo no Ken 4. So I think all of these came out except for Poppers, so nothing too unusual here. And so here's Famitsu's calendar for October. It's kind of empty except for, I guess these are the days that Famitsu get released, come to the newsstands, and Login magazine also does. MSX magazine is once a month. Kind of interesting. It's not a very full release schedule, but I guess you can see so many games are released on a Friday in Japan. So they coordinate that really skillfully in Japan with their distribution system, and they know how to handle releases so kids buy something Friday afternoon, play it all weekend. So that's a good day for sales. Pretty interesting. Yeah, I think midweek game and game system sales were kind of banned or requested not to be held by the Japanese government, just because it would lead to child truancy. They would skip school, and people would, take time off work. So they would call in sick. So kind of funny. Release schedules as detailed as this never existed in North America, I believe. Actually, here's another comic that I like, Nonki Naoto-san. I guess this means kind of careless dad or sloppy dad. I don't know how to say it, but it's pretty funny. I can't explain all of these, but just the dad's a bit naughty and mischievous, acts like a child sometimes. He torments his children, he torments other people, he torments his boss. I'm just trying to find one that's really easy to explain. Typical salaryman dad comes home a little bit drunk, late after work, and the mother's trying to get the kid to bed, and they're trying to have dinner, and he's like still drunk and dancing and just non-stop. Kind of weird. Anyway, it's a weird way to end the magazine. So sorry about that, but okay, that's nearing the end of this Famitsu. And so here's the staff list. And so that's just put in the back. An ad for Aeroblasters for the PC Engine. Another awesome game. I don't need to talk about that. And just Data East's releases on Game Boy and Famicom. Nothing too unusual here. And so usually at the back of every Famitsu is an ad by Nintendo themselves. This is kind of blah here. I mean, in about 2 or 3 weeks after this, they'll have Super Famicom ads. But this is Radar Mission on the Game Boy and F1 Race with the 4-player adapter. This was announced right at the release of the Game Boy back in 1989, in like April, I think, February. So they showed screenshots, but it never came out until later, 1990. Who knows why? Maybe they had to work on this, or it was just totally, boring until they added some gimmick like 4 players. Okay, so that is the end of my reading this magazine. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to read Famicom Magazine by a different publisher next, from around the same time. So you can get a view of the different tastes between this magazine and others. This one was geared for, of course, kids, but also teenagers and some adults. They kind of reflected, the content kind of reflected the actual tastes of the writers themselves. They were kind of, your typical adolescent, dirty old 20, 30, 40-something men who wanted to throw in, pictures of girls and a little bit erotic jokes. And so it kind of has that flavor through it. They got serious when they needed to, and they joked around when they could get away with it. So it's kind of fun. This Famitsu, of course, was the most popular video game magazine at the time. It was the king of the castle. And the other ones just were imitators sometimes. So it's interesting to compare and see, who imitated them, who had a different taste or a different style to their writing, or a different aim, a different target audience. So I will read another magazine, or maybe a couple other magazines from like around the same era next. So please look for a follow-up video. Thanks.